So the high-octane G20 Summit is presently underway. World leaders are in India's national capital, New Delhi, and the Indian Prime Minister, of course, has opened the first session of the summit. Now, on his invite, the African Union has also formally taken its seat as the latest member of the G20 grouping. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister called on the bridging of the global North-South divide and spoke about inclusivity. And this was during the first session of the summit that's been described as One Earth. Listen in.
सबका साथ की भावना से ही भारत ने प्रस्ताव रखा था कि अफ्रीकन यूनियन को G20 की स्थायी सदस्यता दी जाए। मेरा विश्वास है कि इस प्रस्ताव पर हम सबकी सहमति है।
On the sidelines of the summit, the Indian Prime Minister also held bilateral meetings with the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Now, both the leaders discussed about India's G20 presidency and Japan's G7 presidency. The leaders have in fact agreed to enhance cooperation in commerce, connectivity and other sectors. They even spoke about the deepening cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, while also discussing ways to highlight the voice of Global South. Now, the Indian Prime Minister also held a bilateral with his British counterpart Rishi Sunak. Now, taking to X, that was earlier known as Twitter, the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that the G20 leaders are in fact meeting at a time of enormous challenges, and the world is looking towards G20 once again to provide leadership. Right now, the second session called One Family is underway. Key bilateral meetings are also lined up through the day. Now, the Indian Prime Minister will be holding talks with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Meanwhile, as the summit opened, the Indian Prime Minister's plaque immediately became a talking point. Remember, this has been an issue that we've been talking about for the last several days now. The plaque in front of the Indian Prime Minister read Bharat. This is another name of India that is mentioned in the Indian Constitution. The very first line of the Indian Constitution says, India, that is Bharat. Now, such plaques almost always read India. Before, in the past, every time India had been represented in any international forum, the name, of course, had been India. But now, the government is trying to push forth the name Bharat rather than the name India. Moreover, as the Indian Prime Minister began his opening address at the G20 Summit, he also welcomed the delegates to Bharat and refrained from using the name India. This is an interesting sort of positioning by the Indian Prime Minister.
मानवता का कल्याण और सुख सदैव सुनिश्चित किया जाए। 2500 साल पहले भारत की भूमि ने यह संदेश पूरे विश्व को दिया था। आइए इस संदेश को याद कर इस G20 समिट का हम आरंभ करें।
Now, the developments have come amidst a name change controversy that has blown up in India in recent days. Now, the government of India recently sparked a huge debate about the possibility of using the name Bharat instead of using the name India in many of its official documents. The debate soon crossed the borders of the nation, with the United Nations even commenting on this issue. Now, the United Nations has said that it considers requests from countries to change their names as and when the world body receives these kind of requests. But as of now, at this moment, India has not formally sent out any request to the United Nations for a name change. Remember, this controversy also in some ways is misplaced because India has both names. It is known as India and it's also known as Bharat, and both these names are equally recognized in the Indian Constitution. All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we're being joined in by WION's Siddhant Sibil, who's joining us on this broadcast. Good afternoon to you, Siddhant. This is, of course, an afternoon of power-packed diplomacy. Tell us what is on the agenda.
Mohammed, I can tell you one thing that a short while ago, the Indian Prime Minister announced that the New Delhi Leaders Declaration has been adopted. Now, this is the only announcement that has been made. First, we really do not know the content of this joint declaration. The big question, of course, remains on Ukraine, whether there is a mention of Ukraine in the joint statement or not. What we are now awaiting is the press conference by the Indian officials who will be addressing the media in approximately 30 minutes time, and we will get more details as to what basically has transpired, because as of now most people have just heard the simple announcement that New Delhi's Leaders Declaration has been adopted. What does it mean? What are the contention points? Have they been sorted out? There are other issues as well. Usage of the Indian philosophical theme as well is something that was opposed by the Chinese. Has that been adopted? Also, millets and other things as well. So it's still awaited, but yes, in approximately 30 minutes time, we'll get to know more details.
I think that's a significant development, Siddhant. It is still a matter of speculation as to what, in fact, are the contents of the New Delhi Leaders Declaration. But that's a statement that, of course, was given by the Indian Prime Minister just a little while back. Now, to dwell a bit more on this, because, you know, G20 is essentially a forum, a grouping of nations to address economic issues around the world, but politics, quite often as it does, overshadows these economic considerations. At this point of time, Siddhant, do we know anything at all whether the United States and the Russian and the Chinese delegates are they on the same page on the critical issue of Ukraine?
Well, when it comes to the Russians and the Chinese, they are present in the room. They are always present in terms of the negotiations as well. The Sherpa meeting, they were present. When it comes to their opposition, we really do not know the content, as you pointed out. What we know that there are 73 outcomes which we are getting to know right now. They are attached 39 documents as well. And along with this, we do expect the focus of the Indian side to be on issues related to blue economy, and there is a roadmap for tourism as well in that New Delhi Leaders Declaration. And what is interesting to know is the Prime Minister has said New Delhi Leaders Declaration. Now, whether it means a joint statement or whether it means an outcome document is also something we need to wait as of now. So let's wait and watch what basically this document is all about. And, of course, what are the wins for India, and, of course, what are the wins for other countries as well.
Have to wait for that document. As you pointed out, Siddhant, we'll get more details in another half an hour once the press briefing, of course, takes place. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.